Tennessee decides to promote from within, and I understand the thinking behind it because this is Josh Heupel's offense. He's not going to go out and get somebody on the offensive side that suddenly does something crazy like flip-flopping offensive lines, Dave Clawson style. But Josh, what do you think of the propensity for Josh Heupel, not only this year but last year with Kelsey Pope, to hire from within?
It probably tells us something about the emphasis on understanding the system and exactly what Josh Heupel wants to teach on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if he would make the same move on the defensive side, and I'm sure it would matter who we're talking about if somebody on the defensive staff were to leave and you had to promote from within. But offensively, with the promotion at wide receivers coach, tight ends coach, and the offensive coordinator position, they all make sense. The Kelsey Pope hire last year, I was like, okay, I don't know. Let's see his resume, and look at his resume now. A year later, his resume has a Biletnikoff Award winner on it. No Tennessee receivers coach has that on his resume at Tennessee besides Kelsey Pope. So it's a pretty good start there. And that also has to come back to the system, right? And that's where the confidence fans will have, understandably so, is, hey, I'm going to trust Josh Heupel to make the right decision with who he's going to have coach these positions, and also have his system still allow the players to perform. At some point, he'll have to replace a defensive coach. We'll see, is that an overall mindset, or is it more specific to what he's doing on the offensive side? To me, what they need to make sure they do is continue to recruit at a higher level moving forward. And I think with Darnell Wright, the way that he's been able to improve his draft stock at Tennessee to now being a projected first rounder by some, that will help get more talent in the offensive line. That's where they need to upgrade moving forward. And with Alex Golesh leaving and Abeln stepping into that position, he needs to help Tennessee continue to recruit at a higher level moving forward. They have more results on the field, but they still need better talent. They were good enough to upset Alabama, but they also had a thin enough margin where they could lose to South Carolina the way they did. And obviously you're trying to catch Georgia, which has the best talent in the country. So they have to recruit at a higher level. That to me is more of the emphasis on what needs to happen with the coaching changes, continue to get better players. If they do, especially on the offensive side, the coaching will take care of itself.
Josh, yesterday Joey Halzle was talking about the Orange Bowl a little bit, and it's something that kind of raised my eyes because I just don't really believe him. But he said he was insisting that he was asked about the Orange Bowl, and he said the Orange Bowl's still us. We're that team. We're going to kind of run this, basically alluding they're going to have the same philosophy as what they had in that game. How true is that? I felt like Clemson really played a certain type of coverage that really affected how Tennessee's game plan was in the Orange Bowl. Are we going to see that same team with Joe Milton at quarterback that was in that bowl game as opposed to what we saw most of last year?
Well, I'm sure what Tennessee will do will still be affected by what they face on the opposing side. Clemson with big guys up front will be different than how you view some teams. But Georgia, that they were trying to figure out exactly what was the option. Can we find some yards to take? I think that would have been the plan if they had gotten a playoff rematch, let's say, against Georgia later in the season compared to what they had seen down in Athens. Joe's going to be different than what Hendon was and what they ask him to do, how he's going to run the football, but he still has to run it. I still wonder the quarterback position itself. So we can talk about the offense, or we can talk about the personnel. They have two scholarship quarterbacks, and maybe there's more confidence in Gaston more than I would expect on the outside. But like right now, we're not hearing for sure that they want to go out and get a quarterback. They have two scholarship quarterbacks. That's just not enough. I don't think 3 is enough. So to not have more than 2, nobody in the country is going to think that that's enough. So that'll give you an idea of how much they're going to tell us. But Tennessee, what Tennessee does, they're going to run the football, and they're going to emphasize it more than we probably talk about on the outside. That's going to be out of the running back spot. I think Cameron Seldon is a guy that could change what they're able to do personnel-wise because his skill set is different than what they had on the roster last year with Wright and Jabari Small coming back. But they're going to run the football. They're going to call some runs for Joe Milton, but his ability to escape and make plays is not going to be quite the same as what Hendon was able to do. But as long as they have coming back on the offensive line, Cooper Mays to help lead up front, and Joe with the connection he was able to start creating with Squirrel White, that slot position, you saw Velus Jones 2 years ago, you saw Jalen Hyatt last year. I think you'll see Squirrel White with the big opportunity. Thornton coming in as a transfer is going to be able to help stretch the field. They've shown us what they want. They had Peyton 2 years ago who was able to help stretch. Tillman's a guy that could do that but suffered the injury, and now Thornton's going to get an opportunity to do that. And then obviously Brew McCoy in year 2 will have a bigger opportunity understanding the system. But I don't think Tennessee's going to change too much what it is.
I will say this, and maybe I'm in the minority of the three of us. I do think that there will be tweaks to the offense based off the arm ability I saw of Joe Milton. I think you'll see more slants, more dig routes over the middle, and I don't think they were comfortable with Hendon Hooker throwing that. And I don't think Joe Milton, even though he has a strong arm, doesn't throw the deep ball as well as Hendon Hooker, who might have thrown the deep ball better than anybody in college football last year. I think you will see tweaks in that regard. Is that what you guys were kind of questioning? Or because I saw a lot of that from Joe Milton. It was accurate, and it was in there, right in the breadbasket.
Maybe so. With Jalen Hyatt, I don't know how much confidence there was with they played to his strengths and they did it very well. I still think it's personnel, what they believe Squirrel White can do. The screen game is going to be a huge part of what they ask their receivers to do: get the ball out and try to make a play, and then go. That's what they're going to do in the passing game. So, I mean, maybe so, but with Hendon versus Joe, his ability to stretch the field with his arm, we saw it 2 years ago. They're still going to go back to that. So what do they trust Thornton to do coming in? They'll learn that this spring, and I think that's the case. But I don't what they want to do under Josh Heupel as the head coach is not going to change much. There might be tweaks, but an overall change to it, I don't expect that at all.
Yeah, they're not going to run the veer or wishbone or anything. No, I definitely don't mean that. I just think slight tweaks, like you said.
Moving over to the other side of the ball, Josh, the elephant in the room was obviously the secondary last year, particularly the South Carolina game. But I wanted to ask a little bit. Tim Banks was speaking yesterday. He spoke a little bit about how excited he is about the freshmen. And he also noted a point that kind of stood out to me, which was that they weren't as deep in the secondary last year, and not as many guys were able to get reps in the spring, and that proved costly in the fall. And then, of course, Warren Burrell got hurt, which caused even bigger problems. And he did allude to the idea that they're deeper, and he touted how excited he was about the freshmen. What are the chances that either somebody like Jordan Matthews, Ricky Gibson, one of the freshman defensive backs, becomes a starter next year in the secondary?
I think a pretty good chance. They really like these guys. They like their ability. They brought in Gabe Jeudy-Lally for a reason. There's a good chance that he's a starter at corner. But late in the season last year, I'm not sure who they really trust. I think they like the way that Danico Slaughter plays. That's a player to watch to see exactly where he fits into the secondary. John Slaughter got a lot of talk, so maybe we see the Slaughter boys out there both in this secondary. But Slaughter's a guy that's not as highly ranked in this class, but showed up in December, and Tim Banks likes him a lot. So he's somebody to pay attention to. And then Jordan Matthews, I think, absolutely is a guy to pay attention to there at corner. But bringing in this group of freshmen, it creates competition. Having Jeudy-Lally come in, he's a guy that knows how to play. I would bet on him being a starter, but that's not guaranteed because of the young talent that's coming in. But he's a guy that he's played in the SEC. It was at Vanderbilt, went to BYU, was probably their best corner. Now he's a lot older. He's going to show up on the practice field and know what to do right away while the freshmen are learning to do that. And coaches are going to trust players that they know what to do on the field. So I think there's a good chance that he has a spot, but they needed to be better at safety last year. I don't think there's any question about that. And late in the season when they dealt with injuries, they had guys out there, I still think, because they had to. Kamal Hadden, when he's getting beaten and talking trash, I think a big reason he stayed on the field is because they said, well, somebody has to. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. They'll have freshmen that will come in and push because of their talent, and older players will play if they do because they've improved and they've learned how to beat those guys out. Let's see if they add another player after the spring. They tried to get the transfer from Ole Miss, missed out on him. So that still says that, watch what the coaches do. They'll tell you, hey, do we need more players? And talent's going to be a factor there. But they said, yeah, we might need one more guy to come in and play. So they could make that decision after the spring as well when the transfer portal opens back up. But I don't think there's any question that they're deeper. They'll have real competition this upcoming year. And then, of course, they just have to go out there and make plays.
Hey, I want to, real quick, one last thing, Josh. I know you got to run, but I want to flip back to the offensive side. Travis saying, I think Jabari Small will be a monster, really freeing up Joe. I think a running back will be a monster to free up Joe Milton, but I think his name's Dylan Sampson. I know he's light, and we think of him as a change-up back, but it's who is in there in key situations, and I just love his explosion. And with this offense, I don't think you take a lot of big hits as a running back. I think he can have a really big year, if not push Jabari for perhaps a starting position.
Yeah, I mean, I expect Jalen Wright to have more of an opportunity, but not greatly, probably. Sampson is a guy that it was obvious when he was on the field and he got the football that he could go very quickly at a different speed than his teammates back there. So you have to involve him in the offense. Speed is something that, despite losing Jalen Hyatt, they can still use to an even greater advantage, I think, this upcoming year because you have Squirrel White coming back. Thornton, we've talked about him and what he's able to do. Different skill set as a big, long wide receiver. But Sampson is that guy out of the backfield. Selden can run too. I mentioned him earlier, but he's a guy that can line up in different spots. He can line up as a running back. He can line up in the slot. He's a player that has legit size and speed that can change what an offensive coach wants to do. But acceleration and the ability to hit the hole and go, Dylan Sampson, I thought, showed last year that he was better. Was he the better player? I'm not saying that, but in terms of speed and burst, he was obviously the best player in the backfield last year for Tennessee.